taking a close look at a bunch of stuff, you know, since I made the comment that Wilson was truly cornered, or maybe something else could be said, but you know, liberties have been taken, you know, for example, about quotations from tap phones in the UK, and all kinds of stuff about the death of RFK and his brother. You know, all these cottage industries. I remember I made a remark about Edward in the Caribbean in this context, and there was an instant reply. And so now, on the matter of Wilson, you know, it's sort of like, you know, when people talk about FDR, it's a fact that people accept, you know. FDR was really cheap about a brazen attempt to pack the Supreme Court, which is not really the case. Now, it's true that the reality doesn't lend itself to a great deal of interest. Certainly, when FDR and a team of people got to thinking about some things, and they thought this will really help, and incidentally it might do something about the immediate situation. Well, it just, you know, people's minds are in the gutter, and that's where they should remain, I guess, sometimes. But on the matter of Wilson and so on, you know, particularly right after Profumo and all. But, you know, you'll see him in a lot of productions puffing on his pipe. And, well, you might, but he played a lot of bureaucrats against each other, and that was in the public interest, although, you know, speaking out of turn completely or unreservedly might be thought spilling the beans, and I don't think the beans are going to be spilled. You know, I mean, if I talk about Laurel and Hardy, that doesn't mean that some beans have been spilled, and I could say, well, I don't know what to say about London in the days there. You know, they did briefly mention in a recent response to what I said, you know, these things with zingers all throughout, you know, they talked about what was happening around the world, and that did interest Wilson. But what is made sort of like, oh, and by the way, he was declining in health. Well, actually, that has more to do with it than much else. But he also knew a whole lot, and he knew not to try to do something about it. So that's my opinion. And another opinion I have, and why I turned on the camera to say something, is that if you want to know what it means for somebody not to say all he knows, think of Barack Obama. He too was truly cornered, but he could not, you know, really fake quite the British intrigue that was bearing a lot of fruit, shall we say, and still does, I think. He knew a lot, and also, in his own right, I'll have to say, he also turned out to be someone rather different from the one people thought they were electing. So it's kind of twofold. Number one, he was truly cornered in terms of a lot of things. And also, he ended up doing things that nobody expected things that were big disappointments. But I think it's fair to say it could have been a lot worse. It really could have gotten really a lot worse if as far as I know, Obama is not known to go around puffing on a pipe with his glasses halfway down his nose, the whole thing. But it's as if that's the way he was. Now, of course, it is true that Kennedy smoked not only cigars but also cigarettes. Didn't want to be seen doing that, and then his health got so bad that he had to quit even that. And Obama never wanted to be caught with a cigarette, but he did smoke. So, now is that spilling beans? You know full well that's a matter of public record. I don't think anybody's going to be able to say that I've spilled the beans. Now then, do I have a dim view of people who have somehow informed themselves to the point where they've hurt me and burned bridges and for many years to the point where there's no other agenda than what I've talked about so very often, particularly this late in the game, so that my agenda does not match up with what is ostensibly the agenda of a lot of people who the best thing that can be said is that they're trying to talk past me to others with blandishments and incentives that don't make sense. And then later on, it'll dawn on the people that are getting those messages, oh, you mean that was just I figured out there's no Santa Claus. But there is, isn't there? Because then they'll turn around and do it again after some fresh start. But yeah, I'm glad to say it's a good opportunity to say, if you take the whole idea of the Prime Minister in his day and figure in his failing health, and then explain that in whatever ways you like, along with everything else, you come up with just a big glob of rather tedious intrigue. Really, I would say it's intrigue. You stay tuned and nothing ever happens because there's nothing that's going to be revealed. I mean, they theoretically things could be revealed or disclosed or admitted or explained, but there's no point in any of that. It would be like somebody going on a world tour to explain why ICBMs are déclassés. Well, I guess you could circle the globe, and if you were with the right booking agency, you'd probably go from one little spot to another where people would be just absolutely thrilled. But there again, no beans are being spilled. Then there's something else too. Not only what made me turn on the microphone having to do with saying something about Obama. In a tangible way, he did more for me than anybody in recent memory. It's only because of Obama that I have a telephone. Not enough has been done about the digital divide, and for that matter, paywalls, because some of that can be alleviated along ways I'm sure people know about. I don't need to explain why or how. But yeah, it just gives me a chance to draw people's attention not only to Wilson, and I mean Harold Wilson. I don't mean the ones in Atlanta. To say, many times people are just to see that there's no reason to try to. What if Franklin Delano Roosevelt, as a matter of principle, decided that he was going to obsess about the misrepresentation of his intentions about the Supreme Court, or actually a bunch of courts. What if he stopped everything? To explain and thoroughly drive home the point about everything he wanted to do that was summarily turned down. Well, I'm glad to say, with what all was on his plate, he did not stop everything to do that. So, the same with Wilson in a lot of ways, and the same with Obama. Some of the decisions he made remind me of, say, some people in Congress, or the Senate that is, who would sponsor almost anything as a matter of courtesy. Courteous to a fault, I'd say, in terms of what he went ahead and signed a few times. But I know that if he had dug in his heels on everything that he objected to, he really would have had a hard time. Basically, he knew that he was truly cornered, and so was Wilson. Who else has been that way? Well, now it seems that for the last couple of elections we've had disappointing results, and people are thinking we're going to have that again. We're going to have an election this November, and it's going to end up, gridlock or whatever else. And it might very well be kind of like in Great Britain now, or I should say the UK. They're not very happy about what's probably going to happen. That, all the parties there are more or less tired of the whole game. They did such a terrible thing there with Brexit that and now everybody's saying, what I gather now is that it's politically inexpedient to say we made a bad mistake. Instead, oddly enough, there are people say, "Oh yeah, I was a Brexiter back then, and I'm still a Brexiter." That's like, probably some religious declaration that some are prepared to make. Not that all religiously oriented people are as bad as the exploitive Billy Graham. Kind of a wolf in sheep's clothing, having to do with religion, in the name of religion, to carry on. And the same thing happened in Japan as things got worse and worse. A state religion there became a terrible situation, and there's still echoes of that happening. Astonishingly, when the former prime minister was shot in cold blood as he gave a speech in public by the side of the road and so on. So I think there are a lot of surprises. Meanwhile, there's a lot of mayhem in Thailand and some other places in the region. So what do you think was going on when Wilson just decided to, puff on his pipe and try to stay informed and not get on his high horse the way people still do very often in a young establishment like the United States? Well, it's annoying, but obviously, if I still had my pipe collection, would I, fiddle around with that? About a $300 pipe collection, and those dollars. Today it'd be, today what I had, probably $600 or $800, if I had the whole collection. Yeah, lost that along the way too, So, it's all about, there's a trend, isn't it? Duh. Namely, everything I've ever had is taken and taken and taken. There's not much left. Not much left. I wonder if what your intent is to slowly, in fact, your goon named Mitchell said that he's coming back for more, but he wants to, let me get used to the idea of doing without. He actually said that. They phase in a new level of poverty over time. That's his plan. He actually told me that, if you recall. So that I have this idea, will he come for my electric bed? After all, he's unplugged it. It sits there, no longer plugged in, like the Roku, no longer plugged in, and when I think about the true implications of the transactions that I'm aware of, they're pretty conclusive, and then there are those, I'm sure, that I've overlooked. And I try not to dwell on all that. That's why, a tiny little bit of enthusiasm to say, yeah, Wilson has some common ground with Obama, or the other way around, and now we're getting into a situation where Biden doesn't smoke a pipe, but Biden is kind of like, puffing on his pipe, kind of like Wilson did, a similar situation where there's enough gridlock and confusion and ignorance, he cannot make up for the fact that education in America has dwindled, withered, whatever, so he can't reason with any number. Instead, he's expected to grunt, I guess, or what? So well, he doesn't use a vape machine, and he doesn't smoke Truce and a beautiful meerschaum pipe, but it's as though he's doing a lot of listening, and when he talks in what some call a populist frame of mind, and the others are doing the same, I guess, up and down the ticket, you might say, one ticket, one potential ticket or another, and everything else, and well, that's where we're headed for a while. Part of it sort of parallels the chaos, the rough and tumble chaos in media. A government in the modern sense is largely put in place by media. Money from commerce goes to media, corporate media especially, and from there signals are given that end up getting people into office. And it's rough and tumble, and right now no one seems to have a remedy that would have a chance. It doesn't do any good to say, well, sooner or later you'll have the mobile vote option or something like that, because there may be those that say, well, yeah, that's true, but not in the meantime. It kind of reminds me of that joke about religion. I think I said this the other day. People say, oh yeah, I want to get saved and all that, but not quite yet. Well, a lot of living to do before you want to do all that. Well, of course, before you go off to World War II, you want to party in New Orleans or New York or San Francisco with a certain knowledge, or Chicago, I should say, where near Northwestern. Because it's certain that a lot of people are not coming back from the war. That's So what is it they want to do? Well, you don't have to guess. Not that everybody who did wants to get into all of that, around the family dinner table, but anyway, how many families can people have? That's something for the Vietnam era. People don't know they have half sisters and half brothers, and they never will. Anyway, I've said too much. On those sad notes, by now I think the people involved, the young people, they're middle aged now, but things have gotten better for them. I can remember how horrible things were for a while, but things have worked out very well, comparatively speaking. So just now, look at that, just turned 21 minutes. I could say what I always say about, thank you for one thing or another, and I'm amazed that Eric told me, I think maybe I didn't know, didn't pay attention. Now I have the impression he's going to have 3 of these very tall silos when the dust settles, which is amazing to me. Shows that things are looking up in his part of the world. Still, I don't think I would want to climb up one of those things. There was a time when I could have, but I wouldn't have, or I never did anyway. Well, bye for now. Have a good one.